One thing we have that came in after the last meeting was for the Honeybee Festival, Saturday, the 23rd, from 11 to 5 p.m. They are asking for closure of Main Street between that hours and also getting the insurance, the ambulance, the state police, and porta potty is available, and they're looking for board approval to close.
What date is that?
That is Saturday, the 23rd of September, from 11 to 5.
Well, I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Approval.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed. The other thing that came in is from Hunt Engineering, and it's a Narrowsburg Main Street over the Lake Erie outlet. It's supplemental to the construction that we've got. The one line for observation and administration is run out of funds. They're requesting an additional $131,716.79.
Which they're hoping they won't
Use
use
all of it.
totally.
And I won't say what I said at the meeting.
Yeah.
So I would make a resolution to authorize the supervisor to sign the Narrowsburg Main Street over Little Lake Erie Outlet Supplemental Construction Administration and Observation Services to Consultant Agreement in an amount not to exceed $131,716.09.
Second.
Discussion?
This is the first budget expansion for this since we went to project, is it not?
For us, it is,
Yeah.
yes. The other ones were ones that the construction company has put through the state and the engineer.
And what percentage roughly of the total budget does this request reflect?
Just a little.
I'm gonna say,
Under 10%.
I was gonna say about 10%. I think we're about $2.1 million.
So it's more like 67%. And part of it's still a contingency.
Yes, and this is to go through to, I believe, November. They believe it will be completed in November of 23. For the complete project.
We don't really have a choice.
No.
Nice to ask for a vote, but
That's where we'll leave it. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Other comments? If not, I will, all in favor? Aye, opposed. 2.3, the park project. Let me start out with, I've spoken to Ken Klein regarding this, and I'm looking for a resolution before we go into it to set the stage for either an acceptance or denial, but concurrence with council for the town that the park project is determined to be a type 2 action under SEQA. It is not subject to the SEQA review. My resolution would be pursuant to Title 6 of the New York Code of Rules and Regulations, Section 617.5, small c 9, that the park project is a type 2 action under SEQA as it is a construction or expansion of a primary or accessory residential structure or facility involving less than 4,000 square feet of gross floor area and not involving a change in zoning or a use variance inconsistent with local and use controls, but not a radio communication or microwave transmission facility. That's all.
Well, that's a
So
motion.
I will make the motion.
I'll second it.
Discussion.
what is the resolution?
What we have to do is we have to classify
So it's just about the class.
just the classification, whether it falls under secret. If it falls under a type 1 action, then there's other things we have to do. A type 2 action allows us to continue because it fits the type 2 action.
Thank you for clarifying.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye, opposed. Okay, Jane, would you like to do a presentation of what the
No.
brought back? My 2/3.
Yes, and I get to show the pictures too.
Sure.
Okay, so just to recap, most of you are known to this whole process. I'm looking at all the familiar faces. So,
Your presentations for the board, but you'll speak. to the
I
public.
know, I am presenting to the board. Well, I'll give you my comments later, but as a recap, the pavilion is, being constructed as part of a grant. And it has been discussed for 7 months, and the grant is from Sullivan 180. It's a municipal partnership grant to build a pavilion and a mound, a playground mound at the park. We had we presented, remember board, we presented in August, just before August 8th, I guess it was, and there was quite a bit of objection from the public. So we decided to honor those objections and listen. And very nicely, Jill Fruchter, a member of our community, facilitated a meeting that included, the committee met first. The committee met the very next day. And the committee said, look, we have to do something. The people are complaining. Let's see what we can do. So we decided then to have a meeting in which Jill said that she would facilitate. At that meeting, we wanted to represent all interest groups that use the park. So we had seniors represented. We had residents represented, residents of the park represented. We had youth commission represented, and we had people that live outside of
Seniors.
the flats. I said seniors first. Didn't I? I did say, yeah. So we had those 4 groups. And Jill walked us through a very nice project and has written a report, which I guess will be online at some point.
Put that on, yeah,
I'm
it
attached
should
to
be.
the minutes from this meeting.
Oh, okay, it'll be attached in a minute.
I'm slowly scrolling through it for public.
And as a result of that meeting, I was handed a piece of paper that came from the group from the flats that had a diagram of something that we believed was what they felt was an acceptable plan. Fortunately, we had people that took this seriously and went down the mini sink, looked at the pavilion, and actually measured it up. And so the result was the diagram that they had showed 6 benches, picnic benches, and the dimensions of that diagram were 21 by 24. We had originally proposed 30 feet by 50 feet, but that was an objection. So going forward, we took, and the objection was also the picture. They didn't like the concept that we had presented. We asked what might they like as far as the aesthetics, and the majority chose one that's similar to the mini sink battleground. So we took that information and we asked the architect to draw something out after the committee met again. And the architect said, in order to have accommodate 6 park benches, we have to make it a tiny bit larger for ADA qualifications to qualify. So the 21 feet now became 24 feet. So that's a difference of this much.
3 feet.
3 feet. I think the board can do that subtraction there. The 24 foot became 30 feet, so that's
6 feet.
6 feet. So now the dimensions of a pavilion are 24 by 30. And the architect has given us a rendering, which I will share with you. And I actually go through them.
The public, this is a board meeting and there is no public comment at this point, so I would request that those that are in the audience respect the work of the board and allow them to continue.
Okay, here's probably the easiest one to see it. I'm down to it because I have more. I can see mine. So the picture is, I think it mimics the one at Mini Sink Battleground. The only thing that I think that he did, which I happen to like, but I'll just let my bias slip out, is the base. It's still the concrete, but it has a little design around the base to give it something special. Can you see, Kevin? Yeah. And otherwise, it has the 6 benches and the plain A roof. Any questions thus far, board? Okay. I don't think that was so good. He also, I mean, this one is pretty much, you need to have the, there's no difference in concept for you, right? He also, let's see if he did do that. We discussed, I don't see it here, we discussed placement of this, and the committee met and went down to the ball field or the park. All these pictures, by the way, are just other versions of the same. I did show them because it'll look like I'm hiding something. So we went down to the ball field and we looked, trying to figure out placement. And the committee, in thinking about it, thought the best place to put it, and it's not very big in comparison, of course, to the whole ball field. I don't see the aerial view. This is more the schematic. The committee thought it would be best to place it here. This is how I explained it this morning. I think it was understood. If this is the total ball field, and then we go like this, and we say, this is where the basketball court is. This is the ball field. This is the playground equipment. These right here are the 2 grasses. We thought we would place it right there.
Jane, is that correct where it is on the screen?
Pardon?
On the screen, is that correct, the orange box?
Yeah, that's correct. It would be a little bit more
Oh, I
down
can't see.
from the field this way.
It should be on that screen also.
Okay, it should be on the.
That's on the multi,
Oh,
that's the 16.
okay. So, yeah, so this is just what the multi-generational park plan had proposed anyway. And it seemed to be the best place. So does the board have any questions about that?
Well, I do, Jane, when we get into it, because when we received the plans, they were given to the building department
Oh, okay.
and they were rejected. They were rejected as presented due to the fact that it's a building for assembly and it did not have restrooms in it. So the question became, can we then have porta potties with it? And we were told no, because they are temporary. So we came up with 2 options, and one of the other questions that we asked was, well, we've got a Veterans Memorial Park, we've also got a deck, neither of which have a bathroom. And the explanation that was given is because they are not buildings for assembly, they are observation points. And there's a difference in the building code for it. So what options do we have? The first option was to incorporate the bathrooms into the existing plans that we have just seen. The issue with that was the plans were already drawn up. That's what we were presenting to them, which would be going back having them redrawn for a third time in a lower footprint and the additional rendering. Along with the fact that being in a floodplain, we would then have to worry about elevation on it because of the size of the building and the fact that there was solid around it. The second option was separate from the pavilion, the bathroom, you have a second building, or it would be the size of 2 bathrooms. That way, the pavilion elevation would not come into play because it would not have walls. It would allow the water to pass through, which would allow for the flood mitigation. By the bathroom being its own standalone, the same thing, we would not have to worry about the elevation. We could put flood vents in it. The flood vents are just something that fall apart and it doesn't inhibit the water from coming in. And that would satisfy the building code because that bathroom would then be for that. And it wouldn't matter where on the property that the bathroom went, it could go anywhere, but it would be for the assembly point. So as we look at this, that is something to keep in mind.
So we don't have an option then about the bathroom.
You do not have an option. He will not issue a certificate of occupancy for the assembly without a bathroom.
First motion. The option is on there.
With the public talking about like stamp experience.
We're not taking public.
I know, I'm saying.
Well, that was the monkey wrench in things.
It does or doesn't. It would need to be done. Whether it was done at the same time as the pavilion or done with the soon thereafter, being that we're coming into the cold weather months. Discussion from Greg and Kevin.
My understanding is that the grant from 180 is contingent upon the project being completed by October or the end of October.
October 1st.
October 1st, which is roughly 40 days.
Mhm.
Anybody ever do anything on this? Yeah, 40 days. I don't mean to be, a lot of people have done a lot of great work on it, and I respect that. I'm just trying to be realistic.
I would like, and I'll add into that. At this point, with what we've done, I would say the grant can become supplemental at this point. To hold up on the grant or say that we're gonna move it forward in the grant. If we don't have the votes here today, if we're a split board, we have to wait to the next board meeting to go forward. I think the project is a good project. I think that Jill did a great job in bringing people together in order to come to a consensus. Whether people like the bathroom or not like the bathroom, that's not within the board's control at this point. That becomes part of the building code. So
But the bathroom doesn't have to be built by October 1st.
no, and let's assume that the pavilion's not gonna be built by, October 1st,
We don't
because
know that yet.
we don't. But if we're a split board, we can be pretty sure that it's not going to be.
Well, we don't know we're a split board yet.
Right, but I don't think we should. I think where I'm going with this is regardless of the Sullivan 180 grant, we should move forward with it. If we can explain to the grant people that, they've seen, you've obviously gotten emails and spoken at 180, they read the newspaper. I think the project is good and shouldn't be held up because of the grant.
I hear everything you're saying. I feel as though the budget is going to more than double because of those bathrooms. And I think I personally would lean towards not committing to the project until we understand the complete budget impact. So
I think also, once we get the bids back, we have the right to reject any and all bids. So if the price is outside of where we want to be, we do have the right to reject bids. So we also did that on the project down here, the culvert.
I'd like to make a statement. And I put it in writing to the town board members dated August 23rd, 2003. I, like you, have read the petitions and the comments from the public with regards to the upgrades to the town park, specifically the pavilion. There is a request for a pause. Absolutely not. This board is not obligated to make up for the lack of attention to the proceedings of. The pavilion has been spoken of in the grants report, which is found online for over 7 months. It said, and there's no hint, no hidden anything. The wording was always Sullivan 180 Municipal Partnership Grant for a pavilion for the multi-generational park on the flats from February. I have it right here. Let me just see. Adequate time has been given to comment. Because the signers of the petition failed to pay attention, that should not equate as a lack of this board's transparency, which I think we have been accused of. I received an email addressed to only me that asked that deals behind closed doors need to become transparent. I have no idea what kind of deal can be made, and I'm personally insulted by this statement. The board is transparent. It is the public that is behind the closed doors, not the board. The public needs to open their doors, get out, and come and listen to their elected officials. I'm shocked at the selfish attitude the Flats community has expressed. The park has been there in most cases before most of those residents have lived there. What do they think a park is for? Why'd they purchase property in a community that has a park? Maintenance was mentioned, and maintenance, many negative comments revolve around maintenance. And yes, that's an issue. We as a board need to make sure this is addressed. A paid individual with responsibility for park and garden maintenance must be hired. The comments that oppose this expense make no sense. You can't have it both ways. How many residents realize how spoiled they've been? For over nearly 25 years, volunteers from the Narrowsburg Beautification Group. Yes, volunteers costing taxpayers.
Please.
Again, these volunteers are no cost to taxpayers. The Narrowsburg Beautification Group came to the town several years ago and said they no longer have volunteers to maintain the Veterans Park. Should the town ignore this park and let it become an overgrown mess? Or is it this board's responsibility to have it maintained? What's the difference between paying someone to shovel snow around our municipal properties and maintaining them in the winter, and paying someone to maintain our municipal public spaces in warmer weather? It's all maintenance of public spaces. Are those objecting to the expense willing to step up for this job, as members of the beautification group have done for years? The notion that our youth should go elsewhere, that came up too. Port Delaware was a suggestion owned by Sullivan County. Is another reflection of a selfish attitude expressed by the mailings we have received. Are we as a town not responsible for our youth? A bathroom and serving area, AKA a kitchen, may be an overambitious plan at this time, but not to be able to provide a shady place for parents to watch their children lacks a board's basic consideration to our youth and parents alike. I could go on, but at this time, I urge this board to go forward with the pavilion and the playground mound as presented today, which includes the voice of those residents that attended the meeting facilitated by Jill earlier this month.
Who wrote this?
So I'm Jane Luxinger, Deputy Supervisor.
Okay, so we're sheltered.
So, that's my comment to the board. I think we should go forward.
I think, I mean, I see what you're saying, but I kind of see it from another angle. I mean, I've only been on the board, I don't know, a year and a half, and it's always an education, you know, it's like you learn what you can do and what you can't do. And you gotta remember, this is a town of 1,400 people with half that many people who are full-time residents. And even if the Tooth Fairy gave us all the money in the world and and we built that thing, it was right there. Sorry about the tooth. I know you, but we still have to, you'd say we have to hire a maintenance and park department. Maintenance and park department is another department. Are they union people? I mean, it's a whole other department. To facilitate a building that we're iffy on. Even if we had the money to pay a parks and maintenance people, sometimes the human resources to man that department are hard. There was a little ding on the bench on Main Street. How long did it take to get that thing? You know, and it was discussed at this board any number of times. We went out for grass cutting. Where are they from? Where's our grass cutters?
Oh, Milford.
Milford. That's a considerable distance. I'm just saying the kinds of the human resources to even man this kind of thing to maintain it. I don't think people are selfish. I don't think people are, you know, or indulgent in anything. I just think sometimes you have to recognize we live in a town with maybe 750 full-time residents. When I heard the reservations of this project, the phrase in my mind that kind of came up was creeping the suburbanization. People didn't move, they've moved away from Bloomfield, New Jersey or wherever. The kinds of resources you get in Westchester, New Jersey, Long Island are different than they are here because we live in a national park with 750 people in the town. Our expectations have to be realistic. I just.
What's the solution?
My solution is to let this one go. And plant some trees.
Well, please, let the board do their work.
Plant some trees.
We don't interrupt you.
Do some minimal, like I said the last time, I do some picnic tables with a pergola or whatever. Something smaller, less. I mean, you know, we cut down trees and that was unfortunate. Maybe we should put some trees back. This is a big sort of project, no matter what way you slice it. And I'm not convinced of the project or the process. The process has been more, you made a good point about it being more transparent than even I kind of thought the last time. But so maybe I wasn't paying enough attention. But I would vote no on this.
I think just one point to clarify, and I don't think we need a parks department. I don't think we need a whole nother union. I think this can be done like we did back in the early 2000s where we had contracting for garbage pickup. We actually had a garbage pickup that would do Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, and Mondays, depending on the time of the year, and then was responsible to go in during the course or be called for pickups when it was needed. So I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing a low maintenance building. Albeit we're gonna have to hire a gardener with this next budget. We've seen that on Kirk Road. You know, and I don't look at that as a problem. I look at it as a good thing because if we want to have things that look nice, we want to have people say something about our community, we have to back some of those things up. So really what I'm seeing with this pavilion and unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you're looking at it, with the bathroom facility, I've heard lots of things about bathroom facilities. Now because we are going to be required to have one if we have a pavilion, yeah, it's going to need to be cleaned. We're going to have to hire somebody just like we hire somebody to clean this building. You know, whether that becomes part of the job or not. So I don't think it's as big of a monkey on the back as it looks
It's kind
like.
of like snow shoveling, right? We hire somebody to snow shovel.
But I think at this point, the board is split. We don't have our deciding vote here. So we're not going to get it resolved tonight.
Can I say a couple of things?
Only if you want to.
Please do.
I think there's a lot to learn from this situation. And I think a lot of the discussion has been either or. And one of my disappointments, because I probably would not have put it the way Jane did, but I share some of her feelings in I too got an email accusing us of backdoor deals in the thriving pavilion sector. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating and it's unfair because there's no evidence to that point. Now, there may be conduct within this that you wish were different, but to accuse people of that type of activity without any evidence is irresponsible. That being said, I know some of the concerns we are still discussing came up months ago and are still not resolved in a way that we can hold people to that solution. And I feel like there are a lot of unresolved things. And when I saw the new design, which I appreciated people rushing, so there was the opportunity to see it, I was more of a mind that my thinking opened up. But, and I like the fact that within all the entrenched thinking we've been sent, that a compromise was moved towards. I feel in this design, everyone's concerns have been taken into consideration, but the bathroom becomes a huge variable for me, especially against the maintenance that we have seen in the park in the past. And I also think that I would soften the point you made. We are a community that has the option of Fort Delaware. It is not offered by the town, but it is an option. So to offer other options when there is an option here, to me is something that has to be discussed and looked at. But this was a fine compromise until the bathrooms became another issue. And just the maintenance that we haven't seen at the park. I drove past it today to see if, thank you, all the people who made that garden go away. Thank you.
Yeah, here.
But I was looking at the walkway, and the walkway, as we all know, is not complete. Those things happen, but it's also poorly maintained.
Mm-hmm.
You can't even see the walkway for the weeds that are popping through that. And then to find out that it's supposed to be expanded past the scope I understood, just as it's not being maintained now and we're going to make it bigger. That is a concern that we have to have something, a plan that is clear and budgeted. I'm starting to circle my points. I said it at the last meeting, it is exciting to see other people offer opinions and thoughts about what is best for the town. I think it should always be done constructively. I don't think it always has been done constructively in both directions on this particular issue. But the passion you have found for this, take to other projects. We have learned, I agree with Jane, we did not sneak this in. It has been part of several agendas. It has been on the website. It has been discussed. Let's learn from this. Let's follow those notes. Let's ask questions when we see them on the agenda. And I think it would be wonderful to find the passion that we found around this and apply it to other projects. And I think it's exciting that people want to be more informed. I've also seen emails where people listened to 2/3 of what was being said and then sent opinions without all the details being tracked. We are a small municipality. Every time we take on a project, it costs us labor that could be going somewhere else or using your money as efficiently as possible. And as a person who's been on the board for 2 years, I do think we use money responsibly. And there's been suggestion that it would be an easy decision to walk away from this grant. And I'll just speak to my own property taxes. A $20,000 grant speaks to about over 8 years of what I pay in property taxes away from education taxes. So to walk away from a $20,000 payday, that's 8 years of what I give this town to help it run. And that's frustrating to me. And the last thing I want to say, and then I'll shut up, is I think one of the most important points was made by Eugene within the original scope of the discussion when the pavilion was bigger. I would assume that pavilion had a capacity of over 100 people. So let's say we get 150 people, 100 of whom are going to use the pavilion. On a day where Main Street is doing well, restaurants are open, we already only have one lane in and out of the flats. So if you were to add something that is greater than the capacity of restaurants and the overflow from shopping and just people living their lives that live on that street, you're going to, in essence, perhaps informally double the traffic. And then God forbid, people are coming in the wrong direction and there is an emergency. Right. And the first thing that I was taught in my career is no matter what you do in your industry, you protect the safety of the people involved or using it. So to me, in some of the emotional discussion around this topic, that safety concern, which is reflected in the new scope, I no longer have that concern with this size pavilion, but that was one of the things that we should have been holding on to hardest, in my opinion. And I feel like within the emotion, some of those factors didn't get full discussion either. So thank you for listening to me, and I yield.
My only reply to that, Greg, would be when we hear things like, we can use Fort Delaware, we can use the Union, we can, I think it draws away from the fact that what we're trying to do is provide something at that specific area, not for just the Tusten Youth. Tusten Youth has been a very vocal proponent of what they want to do, and I will give them credit. They do a lot for the kids, and that's why they are that way. But when we say they can use Fort Delaware, then we're not utilizing our park by people that want to go to our park. It's good for the Tusten Youth, I understand that, but that's something to think about.
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
On the 4th of July, I personally was excited to see how many people came to town to enjoy the excellent programming. I texted the people for whom I had contact information saying, wow, Kirk's Road is backed up. And that's Kirk's Road that has a traffic light, that has a major intersection. Again, it moves me further down that way. And the other thing that I would say to that point then is just how many times a year is that capacity going to get used against that duplication? I think that's part of the formula that has to be considered.
You know, and I've heard this from so many people, the traffic. I've got a pretty decent handle on traffic from my past experience in law enforcement. And I'm thinking, okay, let's assume that that pavilion gets to be used for a youth summer camp that's got 20 kids. And let's assume that each of those 20 kids that come to that youth summer camp arrive by their own parent and they don't carpool. That's 20 entrances and 20 exits to that summer camp in the morning. And assuming mom and dad don't stay, so 20 in, 20 out. In the afternoon, you're gonna have 20 in, 20 out. I haven't heard anybody speak of a traffic study on the flat for all of the Airbnbs that we have. And when I think about all the Airbnbs we have, I say, I know there's a lot more, but let's say there's 20 Airbnbs on the flats on a good weekend. And let's assume that each of those Airbnbs has an average of just 2 cars. I was gonna go 3 or 4 because I know friends that have used Airbnb have had 5 cars. So now we've got 20 Airbnbs that have 2 cars in each other. That's 40 cars. That's not 40 entrances and then an exit. Those are people who are gonna come and use our Main Street or go to Callicoon or to a farmer's market in Berryville or Bethel Woods. Now we're talking about multiple entrances and exits that are far going to precede what this project does. So when we talk about Main Street being busy and Laundrette being busy or the fireman's field being busy, I think we really need to look at that as a whole picture and say, is this gonna be the traffic jam people think it's gonna be?
So to respond to that, two things. Number one, I'm not talking about this scale. I was talking about discussion that got lost.
No,
on
no,
a larger scale.
But that,
And
I
hear
understood that
your
when I,
point.
yeah,
I
I
hear how your
understood
point
that.
affects that. And the other thing I would say to Airbnbs, which are a whole nother subject that
Mhm.
could be discussed, those houses existed before they were Airbnbs.
But they
So-
didn't exist, they didn't exist. We've got two properties that have Airbnbs next to us. And I'm not trying to get away from the subject of the park. What I'm trying to do is to establish a point that there's more traffic at an Airbnb than there is at a regular residence. Because those people are here to enjoy themselves. They're here to see the town. They're here to see Bethel Woods. They're here to explore. And that's the only point I'm making. This is not a Airbnb bad, town good, or Airbnb good, town bad. It's just a point that I wish to make, that we have things that have created traffic in our town. But we've chosen not to bring that to the surface unless it's something we don't want.
Again, I think that this just, like Kevin, I am prepared to vote no right now simply because of the bathroom. I saw this plan and it was moving me in the right direction, but the variable of the finances and the maintenance of that bathroom, it's not like I wouldn't readdress this when those factors are known.
Well, we're probably gonna have time to do that, but, and I give this to the entire board. We sit here and we complain about the park and the condition of the park. Who is responsible for the condition of the park? We are. It is our responsibility. So we're not gonna be able to vote on this today, but we can certainly have some discussions in our work session in our next meeting and say, are we gonna come up with something? You know, I'll put the budget numbers together. We're gonna have to hire somebody. But there's no doubt about how are we gonna do it? So that gives us time to do it when the next member comes in. It might get voted down, it might get voted up. If it gets voted up, we've got, as a board, we have some time to address the issues that pretty much this board is responsible for. We're responsible. You know what? The 4 years that I've been here, I'm just as responsible for that park not being completed as your 2 years, as your 20 decades. The bottom line is we are responsible for it. So I don't think we're gonna be able to vote today because I mean, I can put it up for a vote if you want. But if you're gonna, I take it you're not in favor of it at this point. You're not in favor at this point. Jane and I are in favor of it at this point. Why don't we have the discussions that move us forward as a board on what we're going to do? I don't think we need to wait another year for us to decide what we're gonna do because we are the board. We are responsible for that. And we're the only ones that are gonna make that decision to move it forward.
Mhm. And what are we doing with the $20,000 grant?
I think we're gonna keep the $40,000 grant because we haven't voted this down. We haven't voted it down. We've got another meeting coming up. We can, I think this board needs to have those discussions and maybe at that work session, that's what we need to be discussing. How are we gonna do this? Or how are we not gonna do this? That sound reasonable?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't wanna sound reasonable, because that sound reasonable?
Yeah. Why start now?
Thank you. Only Mike gets away with that.
Well, I gave my opinion. I'm just not sure. You're saying keep the 20,000. But
If they ask for it back, then it goes back to them. But I don't think we should stop at this point because we don't have one board member here. And I think it's continued on this board to see Greg's got 3 points, you know. Are we going to, you know, are we gonna be able to do it? Is your budget gonna, there's these questions. Do I think we can do it? Yes, I do think we can do it. I
you're
think
the fiscal.
I think the budget will reflect that. You know, I think it's a good project. I think it's a good project for the town in the long run.
Mhm.
But there's questions that need to be answered, and I've got two board members that are saying, you know what, I want better answers for what we've got, other than you saying, no, we can do it.
Mhm. Well, it sounds like there's no choice right now, except
I would
to,
entertain a motion to adjourn.
You want,
Without comment,
We can, yeah, I can open up the public comment. I prefer, I won't. Never mind. Yes, Eugene.
I just wanted to thank you for the last meeting. It was very constructive and really appreciate the effort. And I thought what you presented today was a very good compromise. I really had hoped that we could move forward with that. At the last meeting, Mr. Johnson, you said that the town did not necessarily have to follow the planning and zoning that's in place because it's a municipality. Could we not possibly use that to get around the bathrooms, that we don't have to follow the planning and zoning?
No, it only applies to planning and zoning. It doesn't apply to the building code.
It does not,
I wish we could.
because that would be.
I would do it in an instant.
And then I would say, you know, the bathrooms then becomes an issue for me after that point. Thank you.
Thank you. And good thinking, I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I like the revised plan, I have nothing
Come right
against it.
please.
I like the revised plan, I have nothing against it. I'm just a little disappointed that we can't come up with all of these great minds here as a different way to go about it where the bathrooms wouldn't be required.
I think that's all building code. That came
You
directly.
can't rephrase it as something else?
It's an assembly. It's a,
Call it something else and that would require a bathroom.
The baseball observation.
I mean,
That works.
it is beautiful and the bathrooms are a big obstacle for the thing.
I thought we were gonna be able to get away with just porta potties. Put in, you know, cause we need porta potties down there anyway, so
So what is the actual technicality as to why it requires the bathroom?
because it is a building for the purpose of assembly. And in the building code, as Jim has learned, there's so many bathrooms. and
So
water
what
potties.
makes it the assembly? Because you have the picnic tables there?
Because it's, yes,
So
well,
what
I
if the picnic tables weren't there?
I can ask them that. I don't know about that. That, I don't
I
have to
mean,
get,
that's what I'm thinking. I mean, maybe there is something that you just alter the structure a little bit. Don't have the picnic tables and then you don't need the bathrooms. I think the picnic tables is what's making the bathrooms. I think this is cute. You know, it's a big compromise from what was there before.
yeah, they did a good
That's all
job.
I wanted to say.
Thank you, Steve.
And worth mentioning that Steve owns a property that borders the.
Yes.
Well, or what if it was made smaller, does it still need a bathroom?
Yeah. Well,
No, the way it was described to me is any assembly, any building for the purpose of assembly. Yes, Star.
Yeah. Well, first, I'd like to thank the board for changing its direction from we just need a smaller building to actually considering what the residents have been saying about the pavilion itself or any building that goes down in the flats. And basically would considerably change what these people have gone into that area for. It's like saying you're gonna put up, I don't know, a Dollar General in the middle of the flats. It's just not something that would be conducive to the ambiance that they've come to want and expect. I think that that's the main thing that I want to say about this, that it seemed for a long time that the board was not listening to people. And instead of saying, well, we're going to discuss the question of whether or not we have a pavilion, it was only, well, no, we're going to have that pavilion. It just, well, we'll maybe listen to what you wanted to do, maybe tweak it here and there. That's not being selfish, Jane. that's being something that you're trying to preserve a way of life that you come to expect. And I don't think anybody should be called selfish for that. I object to the placement of a pavilion of any size located in a residential community known as the Narrowsburg Flats, especially as the residents of that community have made it clear that this would severely disrupt and adversely affect the quality of life and destroy the environment in which they have chosen to make their homes. As representatives of the residents of Tusten and the town of Narrowsburg, you, the town council, were elected to represent and ensure that the will of the majority of the people of your constituents is your first priority in governing actions that you take. At the August 8th town meeting, a large part of the residents in attendance made it quite clear that they did not want a pavilion or any other kind of disruptive construction that would interfere with their way of life and the town's way of life. We all use the park. So it's uncertain if there's an environmental impact study that would be necessary. Ben didn't seem to think that there was, but
No, town council said that it was not required.
okay,
It's not what Ben thinks.
someone
An
decided
attorney,
that
a
it was
municipal attorney. Yes,
Okay.
not someone.
fine. Well, also, what about the existing zoning rules and regulations that might have some say on whether or not this building can be used in the way that they proposed, you proposed? Equally unclear is under what authorization the town board went ahead to impose and implement this construction without clear approval of the project by town and flats residents. Until and unless all the above objections have been presented and approved by town residents, I don't think any further action should be taken on building a pavilion or anything else in the town. I'd also like to just make a point of what Greg said about the $20,000 grant and how there's a lot of money, which it is, and it could, probably help to reduce your taxes or whatever. I just want to ask, $20,000 to build towards a pavilion or any building. What about the impact of the money that once you've got this thing started and you still have no idea of even a ballpark figure of how much you're intending to put into this? How much is that going to impact people's taxes and what they have to pay? And the last thing is, I already mentioned it, but I'll say it again. I really don't think it's helpful to hurl accusations at people I don't like, that you, Greg, or that Jane received these things that made it seem like this was some sort of nefarious plot on your part, or the board's parts. But it's also unfair to hurl invectives at people that they're selfish because they don't want something rammed down their throat because somebody got a $20,000 grant.
There's somebody speaking, there was something speaking and you sort of, is this important to
That's
you?
all right. I'm sure she knows what I.
We like to.
Or maybe doesn't
We
even
like
hear
to.
what I have to
We
say.
write everything out. Thank you.
Michael.
Hello, sports fan. I will, Kevin was actually spot on when he made the most important point here. We're a town of 1,500 residents, not all of them full-time. And our expectations really should be grounded in what is the reality of how many people are actually here. As we've seen today, if we go forward with this project or any of these other projects, they ultimately just become a money suck. They are money pits, as we saw today, just with the bathroom aspect coming up and all the other considerations. Now we're talking about hiring somebody to get to a parks and recreation department. We're moving down a road which is only going to push the tax rates higher and higher. And frankly, you got a bargain, I got to tell you, in terms of what you're paying. That's a real bargain. So again, grand illusions lead to grand delusions, and I think we have to be realistic. The second issue here, we've talked about maintenance, garbage, all the other things that will have to be done. The biggest issue which has not been addressed here is what happens after hours. When you create an open air haven for the drug dealers and the other nefarious characters of the night. We don't have a police force, we don't have a way to monitor it. And please don't pretend that that's not going to be drug central. And as always, I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
First, I want to thank the board for all they do. And as someone who lives on the flats, I was the one that gathered we have 53 signatures, and it was against the original design, the big one we saw for August 8th meeting. And most of us would be okay with some kind of pavilion, gazebo, shade. It's not that we're against doing something for the parks. I just want to make that clear. We don't want a bathroom. The second point I want to make, that it was brought to my attention that that park has been there for 50 years. So people that have moved to the area, that was never a park. I mean, it was what it was. So someone who said Dollar General is like, wow, and now we're kind of wanting to put a Dollar General down there. And everybody's saying, well, you shouldn't have bought property there if you knew there was going to be a Dollar General. Well, people didn't know. Okay, so and so the other point I just want to say is that, take a breath. So we're setting a precedent, and each board member should ask, if you live down there, would you want this in your backyard? It's okay to call us selfish that we're protesting or that we're upset. Okay, but it's not in your backyard. Thank you.
Can I respond to that?
No.
Oh, no.
Yes, Cass.
I realize I'm taking a chance and losing some votes. Or some friends on the board.
sit up here? I don't think you.
I don't know. But it is in my backyard. Probably closer than it is to Patty's, but it doesn't, I'm not gonna parse that. I want a pavilion. I want a shade structure in the park. I want to be able to go there with my granddaughter and enjoy as she gets on her feet and starts running around. You know, I have a house, and most of us have houses, and you could think of our houses as money pits because we keep putting money into them, and we keep improving our homes and our properties to make them more livable and more comfortable. We've put a lot of money into our home here in Narrowsburg and continue to have to keep up with it. You know, as we get older and older and more people, we still have to do it. Somebody has to do it. I think that that's a function of government to keep up with the property and keep up with. I'm thrilled with the changes, a lot of the changes that have gone on in Narrowsburg since we bought our home in 1999. It's a much more vibrant community. And I don't see this pavilion as drawing people from outside. I've been looking around all the different communities lately with an eye toward this. Callicoon has one. They're hardly suburban. I went to the Canal Park Festival in Hawley. They have a beautiful pavilion. I took pictures of it. It's gorgeous. I mean, it's way beyond anything we're talking about. As far as I know from talking to the people there, they don't have a big drug dealing problem. Okay. I think we're worrying about the traffic. I mean, I agree. Airbnbs are much bigger draw for traffic than people who are going to use a relatively small pavilion that just gives them some shade while they watch their kids play. So thank you for all of you for what you're doing. It's a hard job. And I really want it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Weinstein.
More from the floor before I go to Zoom. Yes, sir.
I want to say thank you, Jane, because you've done a lot of work on it. I know how disappointed you are, but I also know how much you brought to this community and this town over the years. So I'm sorry to hear the disappointment in your voice. I'm also sorry to say that I signed the petition, and it was based on the design. I love this thing.
Oh, good.
And so what comes to mind for me is like, I'm sorry about the bathrooms too, but everybody needs shade. You have kids, I grew with my kids up in this town. I used to bring them down to that park. We had to leave them 5 minutes.
Yeah.
July, yeah, so everybody loves shade, but nobody likes shade. So it's not really shade.
Best word play of the meeting.
But thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks everybody else for, speaking your mind, and for everybody that did not catastrophize things. I don't think this is gonna turn into a Dollar General. Thank you.
Thank you for your work. I know it's been very arduous and there's many, many issues that you've had to address. First of all, I feel personally and as a member of the Flats insulted by being called selfish. I have given a lot of time and energy to the town. And I really think that's horrible to say. Also, I mean, we need shade. Yes, I thought the 20-foot by whatever it was fine. Now it's going to be 30 feet. We can't do anything about the bathrooms, but the Flats got together, made a neighborhood watch maybe 4 or 5 years ago because of drug activity in the park. There were syringes, etc. Also, at the very end, I think bathrooms are going to be a haven for drug dealing and use. But again, apparently that's going to be shoved down our throats depending on the size of the pavilion. And not by you guys, by law that we have agreed to. This project, however, is based on a survey from the year 2016. There are so many more new residents of the Flats who did not have an opportunity to take that survey. And although we have owned property down there since 1996, we were not yet receiving mail up here in 2016. I really think after 7 years, a new survey is incumbent upon the board to provide. Let me see. And I really don't think people from Beaverbrook are going to come to the park.
Yes, they will.
I don't believe that. I think maybe those with youth will, with maybe young children, but I just don't see that happening. And so that's all. Thank you.
Go on.
I have to say that I am for the pavilion. I like the idea of the bathrooms. I don't live on the Flats. I own property on the Flats. I live out near Beaverbrook. My kids have used this park. It is a park. It's been a park. It's always been a park. There used to be 2 Little League teams that use this field. Unfortunately, that hasn't been used, but I think once we got rid of the garden, now if we have a pavilion, a place for shade, that there will hopefully be enough children to use this park again as a Little League field. There was no issue with parking when we used to go to the games. I use the Flats all the time for walking. I like the idea of the bathrooms. If you put yourself as someone with children, you go down to the park with 2 little kids, you can't drag chairs and the kids. How are you going to go back to the car and get your chairs while the kids are running around? It's just not feasible. Put yourself as a mother or father with a couple of little kids and how they're going to be able to get the shade. If there's a bathroom there, how do you use a bathroom? Me walking on the Flat, sometimes I'm like, oh, whose door could I knock on to use their bathroom? It would be great to have a bathroom. At night, yes, you'll have to lock the bathrooms. I understand everyone's concern, but this is something for all of the residents. I understand that the Flats
feels that they will be affected the most, I don't think your traffic is going to be a problem. This is for all the residents of the town of Tusten and beyond, Beach Lake also. Those people, my grandchildren live in Beach Lake, they come and they use the boat.
They
don't pay on taxes.
I pay on taxes, just like you pay taxes. So they shouldn't be allowed to come and play baseball on the
I
field.
didn't say that, it just,
Well,
we're not
that's-
building for.
that's what you're saying.
Address the chairman.
So I do, like I said, like this whole idea. And like what Ben was saying before, to use Fort Delaware, if your kids are playing on the flats, you're not going to go to a pavilion at the fort. It just makes a lot of sense to have this, and hopefully we can compromise and come through with a plan that will be satisfactory to all the residents.
More comment from the floor? Yes.
Just real quick, I want to piggyback on what Stephen was saying earlier. The municipal lawyer municipal attorney that you had addressed or mentioned earlier, about the variance, and he advised that you don't have to.
About the seeker.
Right, okay. How about that same municipal attorney? I don't know if we retain him or he's just.
He's our attorney. You see him sitting here.
Okay, so there's a way, because attorneys do this, they crack the code on how this will not be a structure for assembly. They know how to do it. That needs to be brought up. How do we get around this not being considered an assembly? Do we move benches? Do we make this 6 inches higher? Do we plant a tree here? How do they do that? There's a way, and they'll be able to say that, so that this doesn't have to include a bathroom. We can go with the extra porta potty and it'll be a done deal. There's a way to do that, and the lawyers know how. They know how to figure it out within the law, and they know how, and there's a way. So that can be addressed. I had one other point, and I'm gonna leave it alone because I think it's been beaten to death also. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
I just have a question. Going forward, since it seems there's going to be more discussion, is there any way that the public will be informed? I understand we have to be better at watching the page for the town, but is there any way that we will be informed of when those meetings are and hopefully open to the public?
Sure. All our meetings are open to the public. They're all on the calendar. Every first Tuesday, we have a work session. That's not on Zoom. It's a work session that we have. That's open to the public. Sometimes those do get canceled, so they will get canceled more than a board meeting.
Okay.
But our board meetings are the second Tuesday.
Yes, I know when the board meetings are.
Yeah.
Okay. And my last point is in terms of traffic, I do think it's something to take into consideration, Airbnbs or whatever, because since the pizza place, the laundrette, thank you, is open, there's really only one lane of traffic coming back and forth. And living on the flats, I'm on that road a lot, and it can be an issue. I mean, people are parked along the side of the road all the time. So increase it for something else. I think the traffic should be taken into consideration and maybe in a new survey. Thank you.
Other from the floor. Yes, you can.
I would just like to share, if you don't live on the flats, you might not be aware of this. But over the years, there has been a degradation in the quality of life. And what I mean by that is, Mr. Johnson rightly mentions a very big increase in Airbnbs. So often, at times, there are parties, there are fireworks at all sorts of times that we didn't experience before. So we have this going on. We also have the unregulated and without proper exhausts, four-wheelers riding along the railroad tracks. And this happens quite often. We have that same situation on the Cortez Road in Pennsylvania, which you wouldn't think would be much of an influence, but in fact, with the river, and those vehicles also not having proper exhausts. You have that going on.
Oh my gosh.
You also have the campground at the end of Delaware Drive where people just up and leave fires there. And I've on more than 2 occasions have gone down there and put out fires. And then we've got a very odd thing that goes on. My cameras pick it up starting anywhere from 5:30 in the morning till 1 o'clock at night. Is just cars that just drive around. They're not from here. They're not visiting anybody. They just ambling. So one accepts all these things, places change, these things creep in. And I think that goes to some of the fear of the initial proposal of this big structure that, that might be seen as the, needle that breaks the camel's back. And I think, not having that perspective in the flats that, you don't live there, you say, well, why are these people all riled up? It's just, a couple of events, the cars will be in and out, but, you don't realize these other impacts that have crept in over the years. And it's a reality. And, I don't think the board can do anything about any of those issues, because we don't have the constabulary that can take care of the 4-wheelers, and we're certainly not going to regulate the 4-wheelers in Pennsylvania. But it's just a creep. And I thought it would be worthy to mention because you might not have that perspective. You'd say, oh, these old people, what are they all worried about? Just a few cars. But it's the whole picture that has changed over the years. Thank you.
Here, here.
Yeah, yes, thank you.
Anybody on here?
I have you. I have Peter DeAngelis.
Yeah, hi, Peter DeAngelis from County Route 25. We are not residents of the flats, but it was brought up at the meeting that there was a petition, and from what I understand, over 100 signatures were signed on that petition. The people in the flats claim to claim that they are the majority. Yous are not the majority, yous are the minority. We are the majority. We have over 100 signatures from parents, grandparents, and we demand that this be built. Yous live near town property. Yous knew it was town property when you purchased your property, and anything could be developed on that. So that's all I want to say. The parents of Tusten who want this demand it be built. Thank you.
Hi, so I agree with everything that Peter said. The fact of the matter is that there's been a lot of discussion of people down in the flats or residents saying, I don't want this in my backyard. Well, I didn't want a solar farm in my backyard, but I got it. But you purchased a property by a park. That is a town park. Like somebody said, it's always been a town park. It is a town park. We should make it more enjoyable for the entire town. Just because you live next to it does not mean it is your backyard. It is the town's park. There's also talk about, traffic and it's going to increase traffic. Well, again, to echo or to play off of what Ben said with respect to the Airbnbs, there's an Airbnb down the road from me, and there's a minimum 5 to 10 cars at any given day coming up and down the road, when before I would only see maybe 1 per day. There's another Airbnb down on 97 that has 15, 20 to 30 cars at any given time there. So, I don't think that there's going to be that much of an increased traffic. Again, you purchased a property across the street from a public park. That's like telling somebody in Manhattan, well, you know what? You shouldn't have purchased the property across the street. They live across the street from Central Park and they're complaining that there's traffic. You purchased it across the street from Central Park. You purchased the property where you purchased it. The whole town, the parents in the community want this for the children. They want it for the elderly also who can enjoy this park. I have been down there with my kids and had to leave after 5-10 minutes. It gets too hot. And with respect to the bathrooms, of course, nobody down in the flats wants the bathrooms because they go into their home to go to the bathroom. What you want you want visitors down on Main Street. You want people to come and patronize the businesses on Main Street. Well, guess what? If you had a bathroom down in the flats, which I've heard multiple times brought up at multiple different meetings that there is no bathroom, there is no public facility. If you had one there, perhaps you would have more visitors, more families coming to the neighborhood. Perhaps you would have more people spending money on Main Street and make it more of a community for everybody. And if there's an issue with law enforcement, there's the sheriff's department and there's the state police. The town can reach out to them. With respect to traffic, I don't know, everybody's seen that Bethel Woods has police over there when there's concerts. Perhaps we can arrange something similar down if there's a function or something going on down by the flats when the pavilion is built. That's all that I have to say. As far as a parent, as far as I go as a parent, I want this built. And you know, the residents of the flats need to remember this is not a gated community where they live. It is a town park. If they want a gated community, there are plenty of them over on the Pennsylvania side. Go there.
Carol Nelson.
Hi, Carrollton. I have lived in Beaver Brook my entire life. A lot of people probably don't realize that, almost more than 25 years ago, I started the Tusten Playground Committee, and I asked parents to join me in raising funds for a big toys structure to put on the park grounds and to remove the dangerous equipment that had been there. I met with a lot of resistance from the board at that time. Thank God for Carl Goldstein then that he taught some sense into them, citing that there was no liability, they had more liability with their current situation. We raised a handful of us. Dawn Carreri in the audience there, she was one of the big supporters of that and gave a lot of help, as did her husband Joe. There was like literally a handful of us. It took us about 4 years. We raised $25,000 to put that structure in. Eventually it was washed away by one of our floods in recent years, and we rebuilt with insurance funds. The point I'm making is that we as parents raised $25,000 for the structure. That was for the kids, that was for the community. I live in Beaver Brook. I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have put in 4 years worth of work had I not wanted to use the playground. My kids grew up using that playground. We used to drive to Beach Lake to meet with other parents so that they could play at a safe playground until we built ours. The township itself has not put a dime of equipment into the park as far as for the children. And as a community overall, I know we have some of the multi-generational stuff for the older people and whatnot, yes. But as far as the kids go, we haven't put a dime into that. There's been not one piece of equipment added. We need this. We need a bathroom. If you put in porta johns, they're for one person. A parent goes to the bathroom. It's okay if the kid goes in, you can have the parent standing at the door. But if the parent goes in, what do you do with your little ones? Leave them out for somebody to grab? And that's not an unrealistic statement in Narrowsburg. I know everybody thinks it's safe. We have had instances where children have almost been grabbed here. So we need this. It is a public space. It's always been a public space. We've had, we used to have a youth center down the town at that location when I was growing up. My siblings they used it. I didn't really get to use it much, as I wasn't old enough. By the time they took it down, it was just getting decrepit and whatnot, and that's why it was removed. But I agree with the sentiments that people are saying that if you don't want a park and you don't want people to come to the park, then you shouldn't have bought your house next to a public park. And I don't say that to be mean, but that's a fact. Like the last lady just stated, if you bought a place across from Central Park, this is the same thing on a smaller scale, on a much smaller scale. And I have been to, my husband and I frequent parks throughout the nation, in Canada. And I'm talking, we go to parks on Lake Ontario. The city is, the Port Credit's over 10,000 people. The city of Mississauga is 700,000 people. The park was literally across the street from his apartment. We went there every day for years. There's no crime. Either lock the bathrooms or put lights up. There's far more drug dealing at the end of Delaware Drive. And I know that personally. I've gone down there and picked up hypodermic needles on several occasions. If it's dark, if it's unattended, yeah, things might happen. But the rest of us pay taxes. And I resent the fact that people don't want to put money into our youth. They don't want to put money into us as a community. People miss the old days of, hey, gosh, remember when everybody didn't have cell phones and all that? People used to get together and talk and have fun. This can help facilitate that. And as Sullivan County being one of the unhealthiest counties in the state, I think this is a wonderful service to give to the community at large. And I have a lot more to say, but I'm done. Thank you. Please support the park.
The only other comment is from Jill Spector. If comments are being taken by chat for clarification, mention of Fort Delaware as a viable option for the pavilion pergola was specifically related to Tuscany's specific ask for pavilion support for formal scheduled programming. It was not connected to shared desire for a structure that provides shade for informal socializing and light. I don't see any other hands raised. No one's unmuting.
I have to say something.
Board comment? Before closing?
Yeah, okay. So I was pretty angry.
You were spitting mad.
I was pretty angry, and I wrote this when I was angry. And after listening to how the residents of the flats, some of the very outspoken ones, have changed their mind, I owe you an apology for calling selfish, and I hope you'll accept that apology. I think I was reacting to, and I hope this can be corrected, that you have more faith in this board and that we are transparent and that we don't try to hide anything. And hopefully you don't have to come to the meeting. You can check online and see what's happened, because the multi-generational park, this was mentioned for so many months. I've said it already, but I think I'm apologizing publicly. And I'm sorry that so many of the others are not here, but hopefully you'll pass my apology on.
They'll read it in the notes. May I say a couple?
Their tooth is feeling better.
But I'm not finished, but I don't know how we're gonna go forward now. Go ahead.
Star, just to address something you said, my comment about the money and the formula I used was just to give a ratio or an understanding of the impact. It was not in the taken as far as it may have been heard. I also, two things. This is town land and this is a town park, but it's a residential park. And I think that is an important distinction when you're going for comparisons. Obviously, the woman who compared it to Central Park gave context to that. But sometimes when we look at what other communities are doing for a park, I think we need to compare residential park to residential park, a business district park to a business district park. It gives context that I think is important when forming your arguments. And then the last thing I just wanted to say, and it kind of goes a little bit to what you were saying, Jane, in your letter, is yes, no, but there have been charges that I am probably hearing harder than they were made about what we as a community are willing to do for our youth. And I just want to point out that we have significantly increased our budget for youth programming in the 2 years that I've been on the board. And recently, as of this fiscal year, also got a storage container for the supplies related to the excellent youth programming that Tusten Youth is doing. So I feel that some of these arguments are being made in a vacuum without context. So I just want to make sure that people hear, I don't think we have been stingy towards the budgets that involve you, that impact you.
I just wanted to, some things I hear over and over again, and it's somewhat pursuant to what Carol was saying. If this exact project emerged after a group raised the money for it and did it from the ground up, it would have a whole different perspective I hear the word, this is being imposed on us, this is being shoved down our throats, all of those things. If the exact same project came about the way Carol came about with her with playground stuff, it's just a different perspective. I just think sometimes, we got to do this to get the grant, or we got to. Sometimes people resent that, sort of top-down approach as opposed to a bottom-up approach. And I think if more people had sort of skin in the game with this, it would be more popular. That's.
Further question?
Well, not a comment. I really don't know what we're supposed to do with this.
Well, I think Anthony and Steve gave a good suggestion. Let me talk to Ken. Maybe there is a way. What I'm hearing is we've got agreement. The disagreement is about it.
That's what it sounds like.
If our attorney can say you can do it this way, then that's a start. He didn't say that when I talked to him, but what does it hurt to ask? We've got stuff that we need to discuss by the next meeting.
Well, what do we do about the bid process?
Bid process, we can't do anything until we have a full board to take a vote. That's that's something that we couldn't get around.
Well, we could, I mean, you don't have to have a full board, but it doesn't sound like.
Well, if we voted right now, it'd be 2-2. So that we would have to vote without the bid.
Ask a question just to help Jane. You're giving me clarity. With, just because I've seen how you're able sometimes to move things forward and not forward. Can the board make a decision, yes or no, if they are willing to do, say you find out, okay, yeah, we can go without the bathroom, but we want to still be able to put out for bids. But because of your timeline, can the board decide, you know what, we are in agreement that we would do this pavilion and go out for bids for the pavilion, as long as we don't have a bathroom. So say later today, you find out we don't need a bathroom, you can possibly have those bids received by the next meeting, just to give you a timeline, just as a thought. I don't know if that's a possibility.
The problem I'm fine with that is if we need a bathroom.
Then you can reject the bids, right?
Yes.
Or you can.
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, you have. I actually didn't hear one person disagree at that. Maybe I missed it. Maybe I'm just so fuzzy, but it sounds like it's been a complete reversal. And so why do we want to let that go? I think that we should try.
I think we need to get Kevin and Reg on that page, because that would be you're gonna need one or both in order to put it out to bid contingent on a bathroom.
Well, the objection is the bathroom, so why can't we vote on if we're in agreement for a pavilion? We can start with that, and then if that's the case, as Crystal is suggesting, we can say that we'll go to bid unless the attorney advises the bathroom must be, I don't know.
Yeah. If the attorney says you need a bathroom, then you don't go out for bid. But this way, then we can get your documents out, hopefully that.
Kevin?
I'm still a no.
You're absolutely no?
Yeah, I'm a no.
Okay.
Hey, Greg.
No pressure.
It was a great night.
You only $5 for asking you first.
Well, number one, going out to bid doesn't mean we're accepting the bids.
That's
Right.
correct.
And the thing to remember is if a bathroom is needed and we do not put a bathroom up, if we put up that, we will not get a certificate of occupancy for it. So you would not want to accept a bid on something that you're not going to get a certificate of occupancy.
Well, the bid, let me just wait a second. The bid would have been a separate bid no matter what. There's two separate buildings.
Right, but if it comes back that we absolutely need a bathroom, and like Steve and Anthony said, you know, you're not gonna be able to get around that, then we would have to reject the bids.
Yes.
Go back up, but again.
Having had time to ponder during that discussion, I do think it's important to get Bruce here with such a contentious situation, and I would rather recess. Get those answers.
We can recess.
And get those answers and move forward before our next meeting, then vote for something that doesn't feel completely clear to me.
Well, I'm gonna table the pavilion, ask the chair. I'm just-
We can reset. I can find some more information. We can go from there and get.
I'll happily meet again to discuss that once we get that answer,
So you wanted,
because my concerns about the bathroom are many, in that there is the maintenance of it, there is the security of it, there is the placement of it, and there is the budget for how much that would cost.
you want to meet at 4 o'clock this afternoon?
I could. I am that committed to the public.
Is that what, does the board want to recess?
Yeah, I think it's, you're absolutely right, Bruce needs to weigh in on it. He can't get away with nothing.
I didn't mean it that way.
Now, this is why we didn't have a 6 o'clock meeting tonight. Because, 6 o'clock, there was something at 7.
Yeah, and the youth program.
Or no, it was gonna be, we were gonna do last night, but they had town board or the land. And oh, you guys could be done in an hour.
Yeah.
Well,
You guys tell me.
Well, I mean, it's driven by a conversation with Ken, right?
I can call Ken today and give him a couple days to. He's gonna have to talk to the building department.
Next Monday,
That's fine by me. What's on Monday, the 28th? Is there a ZBA meeting this month?
This is the 5th week of the month. Mondays.
I could,
Completely available.
I've got a couple of things, but I've got good availability on Monday.
I'm here.
Should someone ask Bruce? Does school start that day?
No.
No.
Okay.
Late afternoon, early evening?
Either one.
Yeah, let's say 4-H.
I have a blank, so I'm free the whole day, which is very unusual. Why so late?
At the 28th?
Why do you want to go so late?
I'm not, I'm just going by what the others, I'm just gonna follow the lead.
Well, give me until
When
at least I got
the
work by,
paper?
after 1, I'm good.
What, Krista, when do ads have to be in the paper for, you know, if you have to go out to bid and put it in the paper, when does it have to be in? Monday?
I have 2 days, I can do them Wednesday afternoon or. The seventh, yeah.
Yeah, well, we go to print Mondays and Thursdays, so.
So it's Wednesdays and Fridays.
So wait, let's look at the calendar thinking of that.
So. Or we also have.
Wednesday and Friday, what time?
Usually by noon, I have to have it in. Right,
So why can't we meet Friday morning? Mine is fine.
But I won't be here. Actually, no, I will be here this week.
damn.
I mean, we could do Friday morning, that's fine, it gives me 2 days to. Talk to Ken, I think that's more than enough time to
And then
find that answer
that
out.
gives Crystal, will have it prepared, and if it's a yay, she'll send it in, if it's a nay, she won't.
I mean, that's fine with me, I'll be around.
So this is August the 25th,
5th,
25. What time?
You say, well, the earlier the better for Crystal's benefit and.
6:15 is good.
10.
10 works for me. 10 AM, I can do it reluctantly.
Okay.
Let's sleep in anyway. Okay, and the purpose of the recessing of the meeting is for me to have a conversation with the attorney in the building department to see if there's a way to proceed forward without the bathrooms.
Right, and 10 o'clock, did we say, or 10:30?
Say 10.
10. Yes,
We are in agreement that that's what the board wants me to do.
mhm. Yeah. And that gives us, yes, okay.
Motion to recess.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
An enthusiastic second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Who's gonna contact Bruce?
I'm gonna have to, I hope he can, well, he's gonna have to.
Thank you, everybody.